looking at this gun here. This is the blue gun. Thought the blue gun exploded, didn't you? And at the end of this video, you're going to see that that's not going to happen, even with a spike in high pressure with this blue gun. All right, we got some angry skies above us. But in the meantime, until they open up, which looks like it could be any minute, what we're going to do is talk a little bit about this unloader. This is a K7 unloader. How an unloader works, regardless of what style that you have, because I get a lot of questions on how an unloader works. This is coming straight out of the pump here. This is our pump. This is what's producing 8 gallons per minute. You might have it 3 gallons per minute, 5 gallons per minute, whatever. It's actually starting to rain right now. When your pump starts shooting water, it comes through this unloader, which then sends it into your jump hose, which goes over here to your comes over here to your chemical injector in your bypass area, and then goes to your hose. Okay, when you pull the gun, when you pull the trigger on your gun, it opens up a valve in here and allows your water at whatever pressure you set this to go through your jump hose and out to your wand. When you let go of that handle, this area closes off and this valve opens. This is called your you can call it whatever you want. It's a bypass, your pump to tank bypass, whatever the technical term is. This valve opens up and sends water to your tank. Okay, so this will continue to just cycle water if you're off the handle, if you're off your gun. That'll keep cold water moving through your pump. That'll keep your motor still running, keep your pump cool. And once you squeeze that gun again, it comes through here. So that's basically the ABCs, the kindergarten version of an unloader. Now this is a flow actuated unloader. This is the K7. Another one that's similar to this unloader is a K1. This is the only unloaders that I'm talking about is going to be the K7. I'm not well versed on other unloaders. This is the K7. This is the one we're talking about here. This is a flow actuated unloader, and what that does is it basically takes pressure off of the pump. This valve will actually bleed pressure. So when if you set this your gauge to 2500 psi, and if you don't have a flow actuated unloader, when you let off that pump, and I'll show you here in a minute, this thing spikes to 2000. What this does is it manages that spike, that kickback, before it hits your pump. Okay, so you'll see this thing spike. Your unloader, this little pin will pump out, and basically what that does is that takes the beating from the spike of pressure of you going from 2000 psi, 8 gallons per minute, to 0. Okay, so that is what a flow actuated unloader is. That is why you need to have a pump like this, or I'm sorry, an unloader like this, a K7 or a K1, which is also a flow actuated unloader, when using this blue gun over here, because this blue gun is rated for like 350 psi. Now this basically eats all that flow, all that pressure when you let off that blue gun. So even if you are running a 1000 psi through it, once you let off that gun, even if you put this pressure gauge at your gun, you're going to notice that even if you're set and flowing at 1000 psi, that gun is not having 1000 psi hit it. You might only be getting hit at 500 or 400, and I'll show you all of that in just a minute. So let's get the machine fired up. We're gonna start with dialing this thing down. So I've had a lot of people talk lately. Here comes the rain. All right, stand by. Like the rain? You like the rain? Huh? What do you think? Yeah? Oh yeah, I would like the rain. And just like that, look at that, beautiful. Everything's steaming. It was about 95 degrees before it rained. I bet you it's a lot cooler now. Let's get back to work here. One common question, comment, concern that I get when it comes to unloaders and these guns is that when using this gun, you have to adjust the unloader. This gun is rated for 350 PSI. Okay, you see that right there? If you don't take my word for it, look it up online. 350 PSI is the rating for this gun. Okay, this is a 3,500 PSI machine. You have to change the unloader pressure when using this gun. This gun is not made for pressure washing. If you are looking to use this gun because you like how it looks, I think it's great. I really enjoy using it. It is not made for this. So you have to take a little bit of risk, and you need to dumb down your equipment a little bit if you're going to use this. You need to dial down the pressure washer, and you need to use an unloader that is flow actuated. You cannot use this gun on anything other, to my knowledge, than a K1 or a K7. Now, of course, I'm always going to be talking about the K7 because that's the only one I've used, that's the one I have, but you can't just throw this on any pressure washer. As we talked earlier about the K7, that takes a lot of pressure, not only off the gun, but off the pump, and you don't want 1,000 PSI or 2,000 PSI spiking at this gun. Now, it's my opinion, we've talked about this before, it's my opinion that this gun can take more than it's rated for. I'm waiting for someone, if you beat me to it, to take this thing apart and compare it to one of these guns. This one right here is the stainless steel internal one. It's not much different. I would like to know. I'd like to know what is in this gun that allows us to have a rating of 5,000 versus this gun at 350. What I do know is that I haven't had any issues with this yet. Are those issues to come? Possibly, but I want to know, why can this one have a 5,000 rating and this one 350? I think that it's because this one is designed for agricultural spraying. It's a wash down gun in a clean environment, and I think that's why it has this rating. I think that if you actually push this to the test, you could get the same PSI out of this, or it maybe, if not the same out of this, you can get more than 350. It's all speculation, it's all my opinion. Let me know what yours is. Opinions are great. If any of you actually have actual facts, if you've done tests, if you tried to stress these things out, let me know. And I do plan on doing that in the future. I have not yet. But the biggest thing I get with this is I always say, well, I have the unloader dialed down to about 1,000. So by the time you get friction loss through the hose, I get about 500 PSI at the gun. And I always get, well, you shouldn't change the unloader. You shouldn't change the pressure. You don't need to do that. You just need to change the tip. That all makes sense if you're using something like this. Now, with this gun, I can run this M5 twist. I can set the unloader to about 2,000, 2,500 PSI is kind of the sweet spot. And I can use this on a house wash, open this up, even with the needle spray on this, and I can get about 1,000 PSI, which, as long as you're watching your distance from the house, you can do so without causing any damage to the siding, to the springs. It's still, in a way, a soft wash, a low pressure. You're in that same arena, even if you're using this gun and you are set at your unloader at 2,000 PSI, you're probably getting about 1,000 with the tip, okay? Because how much volume you're letting out actually determines the pressure. Now, if I don't change anything at the unloader, and all I do is change this tip to a turbo tip, I can go from washing a house, getting about 1,000 PSI out of this gun, to getting 2,000, 2,200, 2,500, whatever you want to call it, whatever it might end up being, with this tip. So without changing any settings on this gun, and this is where people get a little confused, is that most people are used to these setups. Most people don't use this on a pressure washer because it's unconventional. With this, you can set the pressure washer. We're gonna go through all this, but once I turn the machine on, it just gets hard to talk. You can set your unloader to 2,000 to 2,500 PSI and go between just these tips. You can go from washing a house to rinsing screens to vinyl and wood siding, and just changing out these tips. I can go to cleaning concrete, I can go to cleaning block, and that's where I think a lot of confusion comes in. You cannot do this with this. This is unconventional. It is not meant to. While you can do it, it is not meant for this. So I can't set my pressure washer to 2000 or 2500 PSI and use this gun and then switch to this gun. Can you? Yes. Would I recommend it? No. I like to dial down the unloader to be able to work this gun safely. And I think that's where a lot of confusion comes in. Now, I have been using this gun a lot more lately. I've been trying to, when I got this set up in June, I've been using this exclusively. I must have done 60 or 80 jobs with this gun just alone. Now I've been trying out this gun. I don't want to just use it once or twice, so I've been using it a lot lately. Now, there are a lot of benefits because you can just set the unloader to one setting and use two different tips. If I want to switch from this to my Lance and this turbo tip, or if I just want to throw the turbo tip into this, I don't have to make any changes. When I use this blue gun and I do want to then go and do some block or some brick, I will change the unloader. I will turn it from 1000 PSI and up. Now, a lot of people says, oh, well, you don't want to change the unloader. That might be true. I'm sure it can shorten the length of life on an unloader. I'm not going to argue anyone there. But if that was ultimately the case, why would it be adjustable? Now, a lot of times, or not a lot of times, with this unloader, this bolt right here is how you adjust it. If you tighten it all the way in, you're going to get max pressure. If you loosen it all the way out, you're going to get low pressure. Using a gauge is how you can find your sweet spot. A lot of times, I will move this to set the gun, and then I'll put it back to set the pump. I've figured it out after using this for a few months, and now I just leave it here so I can read what's coming in and out of our unloader. I don't care so much what's going on with the gun, only because I know in my head that based off of this reading, I know what's happening at the gun. Okay, well, let's fire this up, and then we're going to look at the gauge. We're going to change tips, and we'll look at how this unloader really works. Okay, so we're going to be looking at this as the pressure gauge from the unloader, okay? This is the M5 twist. You've got it dialed in to basically the point, so that's where your highest pressure is going to be. Okay, so you're only getting coming out of the pump, we're looking at about 500 PSI. That's great for house washing, right? You can knock lichen off, everything. It's not going to damage. A little bit more than a 12-volt pump, obviously, but you're not going to be causing any damage. Now, without changing any settings at the unloader, we're just going to change tips. Let me step into my shop here and get away from the noise a little bit. Okay, so that being said, that goes to show you that you can, this is what some guys are saying, you can set the unloader, it's healthy for the unloader to set it at, let's say, using that tip, we're setting it at about 2000 PSI coming out of the pump. With that setup, you can go from hard concrete, patio, I can even plug in my surface cleaner and then go to washing a house, rinsing windows, rinsing screens without changing any settings on the unloader. Now that is traditionally how you work a pressure washer, house wash to hard concrete setup. That is how everyone is comfortable doing it. But that being said, you cannot do that. I would not recommend setting it that way and then also clicking in our blue gun. So let's go dial down the pressure, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna use our blue gun here in just a second, okay? .11/16 wrench. tip. Okay, now we've dropped that on the highest pressure setting, or our highest pressure tip, down to about 1,000. Okay. High flow, right? Now I personally like that to be a little higher, so turn that up. Okay, fan spray. So that's where you get into the issue that a lot of guys don't like, because using that blue gun is unconventional, and you have to change the unloader to use the blue gun. Now I understand, yes, maybe it doesn't make your unloader last all that long. Very well could be. I don't know why they would make unloaders adjustable if you weren't supposed to adjust them. Doesn't really make sense to me. Really, in my opinion, it's a means to an end. I don't care if this thing lasts 10 years. I don't care if it lasts 10 months. That unloader, that K7 unloader, is 97 bucks. So if I can have the versatility for my business of using a big washdown gun if I don't need a lot of pressure, or using this gun, if I had to switch back and forth, not to buy a $97 unloader every year, or some guys will say, well, it's a ticking time bomb, all the adjustments, not using it to its full capacity, you're going to run into issues. That might be so. I'll buy a new unloader every single year to be able to function my business in the most, in my opinion, the best way. This gun is incredible to use. Now, because I've been using both lately, this gun is unmatched with this, because you can run much higher pressure. When you roll up to a house and it is covered in lichen, this is the gun you want. If you have a job where you're rolling up and you need to do a siding wash, and they also want the deck wash, and they want some block wash, this is your gun. If you have a whole day scheduled and it's all siding washes, there is no gutter cleaning, or I'm sorry, there is no patio washing, there is no block, there is no patio, you have no lichen, which, you know, lichen is not all that common. You know, yes, we get it, but I can wash houses all week long and not have any issues with crazy lichen. This will take down some lichen, okay? When you have crazy lichen, this is the one you want. But if you're gonna just be doing heavy, just put the Kim on as fast as you can and rinse it off as fast as you can, this is your gun. This thing is sweet. So it's nice to have both options. Now, there are days where I only use this gun, and there are days when I only use this gun. I only do a couple videos. You know, I try to do 5 jobs a day, 5 days a week, but I only record maybe 1 job, you know, every week to make 1 video, or I'll record 2 or 3. So a lot of times you only see this gun, or you only see this gun. But realistically, what you don't see is I'm changing these out all the time, because I like the versatility. When I go up to a job, I do my 360 and I decide, am I using this gun and I'm going to get out of here, I'm going to do a whole, you know, 2-story house, 2,000 square feet, I'm going to be out of here in less than 40 minutes, or this place is covered in lichen, the guy wants to upsell some block patio, I'm going to use this gun. It's nice. If I'm going to try to record a day, I want to do this, because I don't have to change the tip, right? So I think that the inconvenience of possibly having to get a brand new unloader every season, I mean, we're all looking to make 100,000, right? No one is buying this kind of equipment and, you know, leaving your job to go make 15,000. We're all trying to make 50, 60, 70, $100,000. That unloader, it's pennies, right? In the grand scheme of things, none of this stuff is cheap. Anything when it comes to running a business, it has a price tag. And if that unloader, even if I'm beating the hell out of it with making adjustments and using this gun and all the things that people like to cry about in the YouTube comments, it's not a big deal to me, okay? By the time you spend all this money in marketing and fuel and stuff like that, that is pennies in the bucket. And if it allows me to run these kind of different guns and have different situations and not just be pigeonholed into one gun and one tip and one situation, it makes sense for me. I like that. And I run into the same issue all the time, is that people don't like what I do, but I don't like a lot of things that other people do. And just, you got to understand that we're all doing different options and they all get to the same endpoint. They all work. So if you don't like what I do, that's fine, but it doesn't mean it's wrong. And I think that showing this and showing guys what the different options are and how you can make adjustments, I think that's really important. So you can run your business the way that you want. This is the way that I run my business. It's never been easier. I've never been more efficient, and it's nice having both guns. There's a lot more options out there than just these tips. You know, like I have 8 gallon per minute shooter tips. This thing funnels water. This is meant for 8 gallon per minute, a big 8 gallon per minute tip here. I don't use them as much. There's a million things that you could do. I mean, I find a couple things that I like and I stick with them. There's a million different things that you could do here. You can click, here, look. So this thing goes from basically shooter to, let me just plug this in, I'll show you. I have one for 12 volt. Let me make sure this is the 8 gallon per minute. I'm pretty sure it is. I'm sure it looks like it is. Yeah, there's my, there, okay. There's one. Let's fire this thing up. I mean, how cool is that? I mean, there's a million different options out there. There's all kinds of different guns. There's all kinds of different tips. They all get the house rinsed, right? I mean, so I don't think it's so much. I think it's more of a tomato thing. It's, do you like tomatoes or do you like tomatoes? It doesn't, at the end of the day, we're all eating the same thing. But this is that's the bare nuts of an unloader. That's how changing the K7 unloader will allow you to do different functions. That's how the K7 unloader will send water back to the tank. Okay, so that's the nuts and the bolts, right? That's the, basically, this is not super in-depth, super technical, but it's a pretty good overview of my setup. Now, there are tons of unloaders out there, probably thousands of them. This is the one that I use. This is the one that I know. This is the one that I like. So I specifically got this unloader so I could work different units. You can just get basic unloaders that you don't need to adjust. So I think that's where a lot of guys kind of get finicky about the whole unloader thing, because they're used to just having one unloader, one setting, one gun, but that is not what I'm doing here. So I like to have a little bit more versatility. It works for my business, and maybe it'll work for yours. Just, I can't stress this enough. Do not work this gun on a regular pressure washer with a regular unloader. You want to be able to bleed off some of that pressure before it smacks the end of this gun. So let's do one more test here before I shut her down. All right, so we got the blue gun. We're gonna be a little risque here and just show you something. Okay, I just wanted to show you that thing when you were coming off of the gun, okay? This thing was spiking around 1,500 to 2,000 PSI. And that's kind of my whole point with the whole thing. Everyone likes to look at the rating and say, oh my God, don't you dare. Don't you dare use this with a pressure washer. Now, obviously, I'm not going to run it at the settings that it was at if I was on a house wash and stuff like that, but I just want to show a point that a lot of people will see this number and they will just take it as fact that this thing will explode if you go over 350 PSI. Obviously, it's built for much more than that. This thing was just spiking at 1500. Now, would I want to play that game all day long and test it? Obviously not. That's why I like to run this gun at a low setting. That's why I go through the trouble of changing the loader and then yada, 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 yada. Okay. I think I would put money on it that these guns are exactly the same. And one of these days, I promise you, we're going to take them apart and we're going to figure it out. Or like I said before, if someone wants to beat me to it, I would love to hear what you think. But this thing, because it has a 350 PSI rating, does not mean at 351 that it's just going to explode. Okay, so now I'm not giving anyone my blessing. I do still think that you should abide by the ratings, and I like to do my own thing, and I like to live life dangerously and whatever, that's fine. I use it. I am not giving you my blessing. If you go ahead and blow your arm off, don't come crying to me because you said Young Ambition said you can do it. I'm saying go try it because it works great. It works well for me. But if you don't know the ins and outs of your loaders and you haven't played with it and you don't have your pressure gauge, I mean, I wouldn't just be one of those guys that doesn't know anything about this kind of stuff and you've never washed a house before and you're just going to go and get this gun and you're just going to throw it all together and try it. Because that's certainly not what I did. I did a lot of research. I looked at other guys that were using it. I tried and tested it and everything else and got the gauge and I play with different settings. If you're just going to go ahead and crank up your machine and throw this gun on here and you blow your arm off, then you're on your own. Now, that being said, I don't think anyone's going to blow their arm off. I don't think anyone's going to blow their hand off. And some people say, oh, I've seen it with my own eyes. Yeah, well, get it on film and send it to me because I'd like to see it myself. Until then, enjoy it. Duplicate it if you want. Just do it right. K7, K1, whatever you want to do it. Dial down your pressure. Make sure that when you're running this gun, you're not running it like a traditional gun. I don't think I can say anything more on the matter. We're still alive. We got all our fingers and toes here. This gun's great. So is this one. And it's your business. Run it the way you want to run it.